Hello, family members. Hope you're having a nice day today. I would like to talk to you today about certainty, about black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, dichotomies, duologies, things of that nature. I posit that they do not exist, and I think that it's worth discussing. In our society, it is very convenient if we can put something into a paired binary, say Republican and Democrat. But when it comes to reality, we can all acknowledge, I hope, that isn't adequate. That's not how reality actually works, right? There's more than just Republicans and Democrats. There are third party, people who actually support and actively engage in third party politics. There are people who are independent of any party that engage in politics. And quite frankly, there are people who just do not care one bit about politics and have absolutely no position that they've ever attempted to adopt within their own mind. There's more than right and left and people in the middle. There's more than that. There's right and left and people who refuse to engage and people who are off doing their own thing with their own priorities that maybe are a combination of some left wing and some right wing. I mean, it's very difficult to truly boil down a population of millions of people to two political parties and have them be adequately represented by such. Let's talk about gender and sex while we're at it. Why not? Let's do both. Let's start with sex, in fact. There's this idea that if you have an XY chromosome, then a sex chromosome, you are male, and if you have XX, you're female. But in reality, that's not the case. There are intersex people. There are people who are born with either completely functional genitalia that just don't match their chromosomes. Like, it is absolutely possible for someone to have XY chromosomes and have external female genitalia. And to even identify their gender as female. It's absolutely possible for people to be neither male nor female biologically, and when it comes to sex. And the same thing comes to gender. There's no constellation of characteristics that you could say are mandatory for anyone who calls themselves a woman or a man. N- Not all men, hashtag, right? So, like, and then you get people who are extremely, say, feminine, that are male, but also, engage in masculine pursuits. You may have people that are very masculine female that still engage in feminine pursuits. So, an example of that would be the tomboy girl that you knew growing up who still wanted to have a beautiful fairy tale princess wedding. Or a guy who is, very arty and sensitive and a poet, but he still likes to go out and play paintball with his friends. I mean, there's a push and pull of characteristics that humans have. And even if they're not trans, even if they're cis, they don't exist on like a line, like from femme to butch. people exist in all sorts of different ways, and that fluctuates. You know, I think it's a fairly common thing for women to be more girly when they're younger, and then as they get older to maybe not be as passionate about that. Not that older women can't be, super girly, but it seems to me like it just becomes less of a priority as you get older. And that doesn't make you less of a woman, you know? So the same thing with men. You might be more aggressive, you might be more testosterone, butchy, I'm a macho man kind of guy when you're young, and then kind of mellow out as you get older. The markers of traditional, quote unquote, traditional uh, gender characteristics fluctuate even within a single person within their lifetime. you know it's not a unique binary. And why do we do this? Why do we try to boil things down to binaries? Why do we try to pretend that there's such a thing as being white? What does that mean? Who's white? When do they stop being white? Like, my sister-in-law is black, and my nieces and nephews are mixed race. And if they were to say have white partners, would their children be still mixed at that point? Probably. Our society would look. What point, though, are you white again? Racists would like to say never, but I mean, if you watch that Finding Your Roots show on PBS, there was, I think it was like Sofia Vergara's husband, whose name escapes me, but it was an actor who had always considered himself white, who found out that he had recent black ancestry. Where was it? Where would the line be? At what point in his history would you say that that his family line became white again? Because there's not a line. There's no line. And it's funny to me, like, even when it comes to talking about, like, say, indigenous people, like, how indigenous is indigenous. I know that I have a minuscule amount of indigenous ancestry, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an indigenous person. Um, I think I think it's like 100. I'm like 1/24th or something. I mean, it's some ridiculous number. Uh, indigenous plus, like, way, 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 way back. Pocahontas was my ancestor, which is actually not necessarily something you can be very proud of, because if you know why it is that she has descendants, it's complicated, right? But where does the line end? Why do we have to pretend like there is a line? You know, it's so strange to me. You know, when you look at any sort of thing, people want to make it easy, comprehensible for them. And I think some of it is just intellectual laziness. I think that's absolutely a part of it. But I think it also ties into the something that you see a lot in, like, far right media culture, which is this, like, absolute obsession with hierarchies. Because I think they would really love it if we really could just sort people into very rigid hierarchies, caste systems, and from there they would always know where their position was. And caste systems are awful if you're at the bottom. But if you think you're at the top or going to be near the top of a caste system, doesn't it sound really nice to know that you can never be knocked down? No one's ever going to be able to knock you down to their level. No, that sounds horrifying, but I can understand why some people who are a little ghoulish would think that that was appealing. And so I think that's why trans people are so threatening to conservatives because they put lie to the binary that conservatives would like to believe in. I think the thing that a person can do that is the most likely to cause them to receive a strong negative reaction is just reflect an honest truth to people that they don't want to see. I've known people in the past who were very open about who they were and what their uh, you know flaws were, and I've seen people be very uncomfortable around them because I'm certain on some level they could see their flaws in this person and they didn't like seeing that reflected back to them. Uh, and so I think that's the problem for especially men, but for women too. The idea that a man could lose his social position, and it's not an immutable fact that a man is just always a man and always above women, because how could that be the case if a person who they thought was a man is actually a woman? And I think similarly, I think trans men are very challenging to to cis women turfs, especially, but um, because they have a resentment of the fact that they have to work within a system that favors men over women. And they resent the idea that there could somehow be a way that you could just opt out of that system. They take it, I think, as a criticism of them specifically. Um, I'll use an as an example here. J.K. Rowling. She's talked about how um, she kind of hated herself when she was younger, and believes that if she had been raised in the wrong era, that she might have been convinced that she was trans in order to avoid the ambivalence she felt towards womanhood. And it's just so ridiculous. Like, that's not what being a trans man is. Being a trans man is being someone who you say, "Are you a man or a woman?" And they go, "I'm a man." Okay. You know, like, I that doesn't matter to me why it is that they say that. If that's who they are, if that's their sincere truth, then who am I to tell them they're wrong? And so I think for her, she feels a resentment that she had to, quote unquote, had to deal with her feelings of ambivalence about being a woman in a society that doesn't favor women, and feels like uh, these young people shouldn't be getting a way out of going through the hardship she went through. It's the same thing like student loan forgiveness or something. It's ridiculous, but I just think it's a coping mechanism for people who are unwilling to be self reflective. So that's kind of what it boils down to. And I'm very low on memory on my phone, and so I've got to wrap this up. That's not unfortunately one of those mushy binaries. Yeah. All right. Well, talk to you later, I guess. Love you. Bye.